I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One-on-One. The coronavirus pandemic continues to impact every segment of our society. And one of the more visible ways we're seeing that happen is in the media. Many journalists, reporters, and anchors are working from home, practicing social distancing in an effort to keep more people safe. And that's happening right here at WECT, too. My co-anchor at 6 and 11, Frances Weller, along with my co-anchor at 10, Ashlea Kosikowski, they're both in their third weeks of anchoring newscasts from home. You might say, what's the big deal? You get up, you don't have to drive to work, you don't have to go to the studio, just sit down and anchor the news. Well, I brought both of my teammates in for this week's discussion to find out what it's like anchoring a newscast from your front room. Ladies, I haven't seen you off of a TV screen in 2 weeks. How are you?
Well, has it been 2 weeks? It seems like it's been 2 months.
I know.
I mean, really, it does.
Ashlea, you doing okay from home?
Oh yeah, it's good to actually see your face. I mean, I've been seeing you on the TV as well, but.
You know, a lot of people before this started, Ashlea, I'll start with you. A lot of people before this started said, man, it would be cool to work from home. What's it like?
It has its pros and cons. I definitely love the commute. I just walk from my bedroom right to my living room. No driving, although gas is at historically low levels, so that kind of stinks. But I love having my dog near me. That's awesome. I love seeing my husband more than I've seen him in ages. It's weird not being in a newsroom because I really feel like a newscast is a collaboration in a way that I maybe didn't appreciate before this. Mm-hmm. You felt very, I know Fran did as well, very disconnected and very on an island when we first started, but now I'm getting more used to it. But it's nice. I mean, I won't complain about working from home.
All right, Fran, what about you?
Well, like Ashlea, there are certainly some pluses to this, but there are lots of minuses as well. Initially, I thought, well, this will be cool working from home, and you really don't have to worry about what shoes you have on because nobody's going to see them, and you don't really have to worry about that 30-minute commute to work because it really does take me from the minute I walk out the door to the time I get to the TV station to sit down for the 3 o'clock meeting. It's 30 minutes. So it's nice just to have, you only need a few minutes to sit down after you've gotten everything set up. But it's nice that, when I need a snack, I can run to the kitchen instead of going to the snack machine or going out to get something to eat. It's right here. My cat thinks that something is terribly wrong because I have not left the house and she doesn't get it. My husband, of course, lives in Raleigh, and we actually have only seen each other once, and we met halfway between Raleigh and Wilmington. Anyway, that's a different story. But it's lonely here. I mean, there's nobody here but me and the cat. And so that part is strange because, we've got a lot of people in the newsroom. You're right next to me, John. I can just chit-chat with you about whatever. And Ashley's, just feet away and I can turn around and talk to her. So I really miss that. I really do. But, the plus is you don't, as Ashlea said, you don't have the commute. You do have the comforts of your home. But I will say, John, and I think Ashlea and I have talked about this, it's a lot harder working the news business from home than it is working in a newsroom.
I would think you'd miss the energy, because that's what we feed off of on a daily basis. Don't you miss it, Fran?
I really do. I really do. I miss, people yelling across the room about, we've got this breaking news, just that energy of being a part of news. I miss that. And when I've got to ask a question about a story in the B block, I can't just yell it across the way to the producer who's either right in front of me or right just feet away. I've got to send her a message on Teams, or I've got to send her an email. And so I just miss the communication. I really do.
I miss the laughter. We laugh a lot in the newsroom. We laugh a lot in the newsroom. And people, if they knew some of the things we laughed about, they'd probably think we're pretty crazy or or insensitive. I mean, but I think in news you have to kind of have a gallows humor, like police officers and doctors, to get through some of the stressful times. And it has been stressful. I mean, we are reporting on something very serious and very scary. So that laughter, I feel like, gets you through those stressful moments. And sometimes Fran will laugh at a video that she sees on Facebook and tears will be streaming down her face. And then John and I will get on it, or John will start singing The Red House and we'll all just start laughing. So the laughter gets you through the stressful times. And I miss that, I don't know, the levity of the newsroom sometimes.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it is bizarrely quiet in the newsroom. And
I was gonna say, what's it like for you, John?
Yeah, that's so strange. It is strange because there's 5 of us at night after the 6 o'clock newscast, and especially even after 7:30 when the production crew is gone to grab a bite to eat. I mean, there's 3 of us in the newsroom, and I've got to walk down the hallway to see the 10 and 11 o'clock producers, so I don't even have them right next to us. And that's the strange thing. I miss the energy of that video's coming in, we got to get it edited to get in the 5, or that video's coming in, or that story's coming in, we got to get the breaking news into the 5 or the 5:30. That's really kind of what I miss. I miss being able to turn one way and say, do you want to do this? Or turn back this way and say, Ashley, what do you think about my post? Because you guys are both my consciences at work when it's a social media thing. And to not have that feedback is just bizarre. It's been bizarre to me. And I can't, and I've told Fran this, I don't know if I would be nearly as good at what I'm doing right now if I was doing what you guys are and working from home. The disconnect for me, I think, would just be so difficult. But you even talked about that, Ashley. You had to deal with it, and you're getting better at it, though, right?
Yeah, I feel like that first 3 days probably just felt so bizarre. Like I was on an island, and that I was just anchoring the shows, which was weird because I'm usually working on a long-term project or working on an interview segment for the 4, or just working on various other projects that take up my day. In the first few days, I was just reading through the newscast, copy editing the newscast, and anchoring the newscast, and that was weird. And that's probably what anchoring the news was, I don't know, about 20 years ago, when you just anchored and you had, well, there weren't as many newscasts, of course, but that was your sole focus. But here all of us do so many different things and wear so many different hats that it was weird to kind of dial back. But now that I have editing software on my computer, Fran and I figured out how to Zoom and how to record Zoom interviews. Like, I'm filling that time more, which feels good and feels rewarding.
Yeah, Ashley says Fran and I figured out how to do Zoom. No, Ashley gave me a tutorial on how to do Zoom, and it was fun because we were on the phone and, okay, what do I do now? And so there was the interaction with someone that I work with every day. So that was fun, and I felt accomplished after I knew how to Zoom and then how to record, because I'm not technically savvy, I'm the first to admit, and Ashley walked me through that. So that was fun. But I'm like Ashley, unlike Ashley, though, in the very beginning, the first couple days, I thought, okay, well, this is all right. I think I can do this, because I was concerned about being able to do the setup and get it right, and then to be able to, do the news from home. And when I did it the first couple of days, I'm like, oh, okay, this is all right. And then you start missing John sitting next to me, Ashley right behind me, the producers around us, and being able to just talk with each other. I mean, we thrive on that. And I think when we are back in the newsroom, there's just going to be one big party. I just feel like it's going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm bringing food.
We all need to go out for drinks. I mean.
Well, yes. We absolutely have to do that. But there's going to be a big party in the newsroom because we haven't seen each other in so long. It honestly feels like a couple months since I've seen you all. I mean, I see you on the news, but I don't see you face to face, and that's so different.
But I am thinking my wardrobe is going to change because I love wearing sweatpants and tights every day. I don't think I'm going to go back to dressing up from here down.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Fran, you always look like
slippers on.
Yeah, Fran always looks like 1,000,002 every day. And I've got to ask, are you, I mean, you've got a dress on, I can see right now. Are you fully dressed? Do you still kind of dress up for the day? Or like Ashley, are you wearing loafers and slippers?
Let me see, how bad are my feet? I'm not going to show you. I don't have any shoes on.
Well, I mean, it's the same for us, though.
And most of the time, because I do keep it cool in here, that light that we have to turn on, you know, to have good lighting for the newscast, it gets really hot in my dining room, which is where I do the news. And so I have the air on super cold in here. So I'm normally wearing Uggs during the news. Very comfy.
You both have been doing a lot on social media, keeping an eye on that. What are you noticing about this community? Fran, is the community anxious? Is the community afraid? Is the community angry? What are you picking up on social media from the people you're talking to?
You know, I can't gauge it in terms of numbers. I would have to say, I think it's down the middle. I thought there were more people saying, stay at home, stay at home, stay at home. But we're aware of that Facebook page that's, you know, created some controversy on social media where it's get back to business and, you know, relatively speaking, it's only a few cases. So I think it's kind of down the middle. That's what I'm sensing. And there's still a lot of people who don't see this as a serious pandemic. There are others who are terrified, who believe that if we don't stay home and if we don't start paying attention to this, that we're going to be in the middle of the summer, perhaps even into fall with this. And so what we do as journalists is just report the information that's given to us. I think watching social media and, you know, depending on emails, I think the biggest challenge for me has been the criticism that we have received in terms of blowing this out of proportion. And that bothers me tremendously because I know we're not doing that. But that's what some people really believe, that, you know, if the media wasn't blowing this out of proportion, the businesses would be open and so suddenly people wouldn't get sick. I mean, we're not making that up. Suddenly people wouldn't die. We're not making that up. So that to me has just been, it's been a little bit disheartening, but it gives you a picture of where people are, and some are very serious about this, and some just think we're going to look back on this and go, it was blown way out of proportion. And you know what I say to those people? I actually hope you're right. I hope we have blown this so way out of proportion, and that there are ways for businesses to get back on their feet sooner rather than later. But in the meantime, as journalists, what we're putting out there is only information that is provided to us, and we're giving it to you.
What about you, Ashley? What are you noticing on social media?
Well, I will say, to piggyback off of Fran's point, the criticism has been like nothing I've experienced in my entire professional career. And maybe that is because of social media and people can reach you in so many ways. But the emails that we get, like Fran was called a liar last week. And maybe, well, I just feel like we're getting more of it. We're hearing more of it. And we aren't in the newsroom. So also we don't have each other to laugh it off together. Instead, you're in your house, you're trying to do the very best you can. And you are just hearing from the, you know, it's amazing. A few months ago, everybody was expert in constitutional law, and now they're epidemiologists, like armchair epidemiologists at home who are experts on infectious diseases and global pandemics. So, and those are the people who are reaching out to us, the people who are saying we're blowing this out of proportion. But for me, you know, it got very real for me last week. A friend of mine in Ohio, her mom was on a ventilator for a week. Fortunately, a few days ago, I just got a text message from her yesterday or the day before she was taken off, which was great news. And I mean, that just put a face on this crisis for me because, you know, we've been watching the news and we've been reporting on people here who have it, although we haven't really talked to many of the patients because of, you know, HIPAA and confidentiality. Their names aren't released. So we don't get to really, unless somebody reaches out and says, I had it, or, you know, this, that, the other. We don't really get to talk to those people. So it had a name and a face for me. And then I was telling Fran that a girl I went to high school with died in Florida of it. And she gave birth to a baby and never even got to hold her baby because she was sick.
Wow.
And that was another face and a name. Like, that wasn't somebody I've talked to since high school, but just to know that story and that heartbreaking story. So, I mean, this is real. And when you hear the stories out of New York, it is real. We're lucky. And we put these measures in place that are working. We are lucky we don't have those stories here yet. And I hope it stays that way as well. We're lucky if we don't end up with these kinds of stories here.
Ashlea, how are you priming yourself for the day? Because we have to not only deliver facts and the facts that we're getting, but we also have to talk from some level of expertise. If we're answering calls, if we're answering emails, if people are stopping us, I mean, people are stopping me where I go, what do I think, this, that, and everything else. We don't have to know everything, but we do have to speak from some point of authority. How are you priming yourself for the day to try to do that, or try to speak from a level of authority?
Well, I feel as though I'm just super engaged. I always am. I'm either listening to podcasts first thing in the morning, like The Daily or Up First from NPR. I listen to NPR throughout the day, always have the news on. But it's amazing the headlines that slip by me. You know, my husband's from Ireland, so he's been paying attention more to, he reads a lot of the, English papers or the Irish newspapers. So he'll tell me something going on in Europe, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that. You know, so focused like on North Carolina and the United States. And there are so many other stories, of course, going on in the world with this pandemic that it's just so hard to keep up with, really. I feel like I'm as tuned in as I possibly can and as informed as I possibly can be, but I'm still missing part of the picture, you know, because there's just so much out there right now.
Yeah, Fran, what about you?
Well, I watch CNN quite a bit. I catch Governor Cuomo's live press conference daily, just to find out what the update is on New York. At night, I do watch a lot of Anderson Cooper. During the day, I'm reading different websites. I look at different television stations in North Carolina, particularly Raleigh, because my husband is there. And so I'm reading their websites. I'm watching their news when, I can. But a lot of it I am getting truly through reading. And then in terms of prepping for this, I'm waiting for the daily email that we get from New Hanover County that says how many new cases we have. I'm waiting to see what email we're going to get from the surrounding counties so that by the time we sit down to do the news, we have the numbers in our heads. And so that basically has become the routine. Watching the different news sources, reading the different web stories, always keeping track of our emails. And that starts very early in the morning and goes through very late at night. It's a very different way of life working from home, John. It really is. Because we are so disconnected, I feel like we have to reach out to the different media sources because we're not there in the newsroom, and we're not hearing, a producer say, we've got this story or that story. And so it's up to us to find out what it is. And again, it's a very different way of life. And I'll be honest with you. It's a challenge. It's hard. It's harder working from home than it is working in the newsroom, because so much of what you do is up to you. And you want to make sure that, you're in the know when you sit down at 4, 5, 6, and 10 and 11. And so that is harder. I laughingly said to my husband the other day, I said, I am so ready to go back to that newsroom. Honestly, I am. I mean, if they said tomorrow the pandemic is over, but the only way you can get back to the TV station is walk, honk at me when you see me walking on Shipyard Boulevard, because I'm walking back to the station.
I'll pick you up, Fran. I'll pick you up.
Fran, you and I have been in this business about the same time. And people have asked me in several instances since all this began, is this like covering anything else that you've ever covered, reported on? And I already see you shaking your head. I can't think of anything, at least since my career in TV news started back in 1983, I have not covered anything of this scope because of how wide-ranging it is, and it impacts every segment of every community in every country all the way around the world. What about you?
I have never experienced anything like this before in my life. And I think a lot of us feel that way, especially for those of us who are working in news, because quite honestly, people who are not in the news business, they can disconnect from the news. They don't have to watch the news. They don't have to keep up with the numbers every day if they choose not to. They can go outside and take a walk. We're eating and sleeping and breathing news every day. So we see this pandemic right in front of our faces every single day. No, John, I have never experienced anything like this before in my life. And there are times that I'm just sitting in my living room and saying, is this really happening? I mean, when you think about all of the businesses that have shut down, the businesses that are going to go out of business. And I get emotional about it because I have some friends that I know are not going to resurface from this. And that's hard. I mean, that's hard. I mean, a month ago, life was just, it was pretty normal. We were hearing about this coronavirus in Wuhan, China, but we didn't think it was going to come here and do what it's done. I mean, shutting businesses down, people are out of work, people are now in need of food, and there's no end in sight. With a hurricane, we've had horrible hurricanes. Hurricane Florence was one that we lived through, and it was an experience like no other. But we had an end in sight. We knew in a few days, this is all going to be over, and there's going to be the cleanup, and people are going to have to, it's going to take a while before we get back on our feet, but there's an end in sight. There's really no end in sight here, and that's what makes this so horrific. And I respect the people who think that, this is not as bad as it appears to be, but I'm only listening to the doctors. I'm not listening to any politicians. I'm not listening to any of my neighbors. I'm not listening to my husband, who sometimes is not taking it as seriously as I want him to. I'm listening to the epidemiologist. I'm listening to the medical experts who say this virus is so brand new, we don't have all the answers. And so if they don't have all the answers, we can't say when this is going to be okay. Let's just say that the governor decides that he's going to open North Carolina back up in May. Then does the virus just miraculously disappear? No, it doesn't. And how long? does this virus have a season? Like there's a flu season? Is there a coronavirus season? I don't know. And I'm not sure all of the medical experts know. And so getting back to your question, and I'm sorry I went off on that tangent, it's something like I've never seen before in my life.
Ashley, can you compare it to anything?
Well, I remember being in the newsroom before we got sent home and talking about the hurricane, that it felt to me, especially, okay, the night that the NCAA canceled its tournament, Tom Hanks was diagnosed, and I remember the president had his Oval Office address all in one night. And we were starting to get like the snowball of emails and slowly seeing cancellations. And I felt like it was hurricane prep. You know, there was concern, there were a lot of emails. We were starting our closings page, but it was hurricane prep for not just southeastern North Carolina, which is what we're used to, but for the entire country, preparing for this hurricane that was coming. And like Fran said, has no end date, because we still don't know the end date. And how can we sort out the end date when only 1% of the population of the United States has been tested? You know, my sources are telling me at the hospital they can only test fewer than 10 people a day. So how are we going to just open up on May 1? And you can't buy Clorox wipes. How are we going to go back to work if you can't get a Clorox wipe to wipe off your common space? I mean, but to your point, John, no, nothing I've ever covered before. And, you know, it is like a hurricane, but a hurricane hitting the entire country all at once.
And what I've told people is, you know, after September 11th, if you lived in Washington, D.C., or if you lived in New York, or if you lived in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Shanksville, you know, life stopped there, and then it slowly started to get back. But 98% of the country continued to move, continued to go to work. You couldn't fly for a little while, but that was a completely different animal. That's the biggest, I think, the biggest calamity in my career prior to this. But I'm with you guys. I mean, this is never anything that has impacted people and had made people anxious and angry at the same time. Has made people on both sides of whatever political spectrum you want at the same time angry and anxious. And it's such a different animal. Ashley, you got into a point there the night that the NCAA canceled and the presidential address. Was that your oh wow moment when this thing really got serious for you? Would that be what your oh wow moment is?
Yeah, I think that's when it got real for a lot of America. And that's when I started to worry myself about how are we going to keep ourselves safe? How are we going to continue to report the news and report this vital information, yet we work in this shared space where let's face it, if somebody gets sick in the newsroom, 90% of us get sick. I always catch what's going around the newsroom. I have laryngitis every year. And then I started to worry about, you know, my husband has asthma. My dad had a heart attack a few years ago. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, if I pick up this highly contagious thing and take it home to my family, what does that mean? But I'm grateful to be working from home. I'm grateful that our company at a very early stage took it seriously, because I'm in some female journalism groups on Facebook. And a few weeks even after I came home, people are still talking about, well, my station's not really taking any precautions. So I'm just grateful to be here. I feel so safe and in an environment that I can control. I've only really been to the produce stand, to Port City Produce, with my mask on to pick up, you know, they go and they bring it out to you in your car. My husband's been the one mainly grocery shopping with his, you know, going out with his mask on. But I just feel like, as weird as it is broadcasting from the center of my living room, nobody's going to come over and see this disaster that I have in here. It doesn't look like it from what you see, but it's just a mess of computers and wires and lights and all this stuff. Nobody's coming over to visit anyway, but I'm grateful that I'm home and safe and can wash my hands a bajillion times a day and that we're not going to run out of Clorox wipes here.
Fran, what's your oh wow moment? When did it get serious for you? More serious than, the situation at hand?
Well, I think when the big events like the NCAA tournament was canceled, as Ashley said, I thought, oh wow, this is really serious. And then when Idris Elba was diagnosed with it, that was my wait, stop the presses. I'm making light of it because I think he's going to be okay. And when I say that, it was good to hear that people like him and like Tom Hanks and his wife recovered from this virus. That was encouraging to hear. But another oh wow moment for me came on a weekend, John, when I got word that the governor was going to close schools. And he wasn't closing schools for a week or 2 weeks. He was closing schools for a while. And I thought, okay, this is really serious. I mean, he's not making that move without having some very serious conversations saying, we've got to keep the kids out of school. So all of that. And it seems like after they started canceling the basketball tournaments, it was like a domino effect. And I think it was, that was the oh wow moment for me. Yeah. You know what else about this pandemic that just keeps you, I don't know, speechless? When there's a hurricane, you can tell your family, get in the car and go to Raleigh. Get in the car and go someplace that there's not a hurricane in the forecast. With this, get in the car and go where? Get on a plane and go where? I mean, this is a world pandemic. And so where are you going to go? And that was just it. And so this is one of those things where I think we're going to look back, particularly as journalists, and say, let's hope to God we never go through anything like that ever again. Because we truly have not seen the ramifications yet. We haven't even scratched the surface.
Fran, is it more difficult to do your job right now? And I say that when we go on the air, we know the stories. We've talked about them. We've wrote teases for them. We've figured out ways to mesh them with other stories. So it's not like we're sitting there and just reading lines on a prompter or on a page. We know the stories. But you're disconnected. You don't have that talk now. You're talking through Teams with your producer. You're talking through Teams with me or with Ashley. So to me, I'm still looking at my computer every day. I'm walking in here. I'm kind of in the same mode. For you guys, is it tougher to just deliver and do that part of what you do every day? Because I can't fathom what it must be like looking into the top of a PC instead of looking at a teleprompter screen, because that's the way I've done it for 36, 7 years. Is it more difficult to do what you do right now?
In terms of anchoring the news?
Yeah, in terms of
anchoring the news.
Yeah, in terms of actually being the news anchor, yeah.
It's nerve-wracking, as you know what, John, because what we have on our screen is a teleprompter, but it's only to the right side of our screen. And so we are keeping up with the news stories, but here's the thing. If the producer has to, what we call kill a story, you know that, but for those who are watching, if the producer has to kill a story, we can be almost to the middle of the newscast and it shoots the teleprompter back up to the top of the newscast.
Wow.
And then it's like, oh
Panic.
my God, because I haven't printed out any scripts and I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do. That's happened a couple times, and I think it has with you as well, Ashley. And knock on wood, tonight, of course, will be the one that doesn't happen. We've been able to keep our cool. And here's the thing. I remember when I was getting ready for this, and Edwin and Luke were our operations manager, and they were going over what you're supposed to do. And I said, so if I look into this little circle right here, but I've got a teleprompter behind me on another screen, which is what I do, are you going to be able to see that I'm not actually looking into the camera? And he said, look, everybody knows that you're anchoring from home. You don't have to be perfect. And I held on to those words with all my might. And so when I sit down, I realize, okay, I don't have to be perfect. You know, I'm anchoring from home. The teleprompter might shoot back up to the top of the newscast, and I might have to say, John, can you finish
Right.
while I catch up? Now, if I'm at 5 o'clock and I'm solo, then I'm going to have to say to the producer, hey, can you get John? Because and I don't know what I'll do. I mean, I'm hoping that won't happen.
Right.
But to answer your question, you all know I'm long-winded. To answer your question, just sit
What was the question? Wait, what was the question?
well, oh my gosh. Okay. To sit down and do the news now is so different, Ashley. And you speak to that. I mean, I've said enough. You go ahead.
You want me to sum it up in like a 15-second soundbite, or do you want me to go
Yeah,
as
no,
long as
do the 3-part story version. You have time.
I mean, the energy thing is a factor for me because I could just be so chilled in my living room. I'm in my living room, but I have to have on-air presence and energy, which when you walk into the studio, it's built in
Right.
to what you do.
Yeah.
You're on. Being in your living room and being on is it's different. It's different. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope Archie doesn't start barking.
Oh, God.
That's hilarious. Ashley, I'm going to get you to take off your journalist hat and put on your wife hat, your daughter hat, your aunt hat, your personal hat. Your parents, you said earlier, your dad had a heart attack. Your parents are here. Your husband has asthma. My wife is a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
We have concerns now over and above our normal concerns every day.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have difficulty putting that out of your mind at all?
Yeah, I do. I feel like being in the newsroom might help me through these times, right? Because we're all in it together, and you know, have that laughter that we talked about earlier. But here, I feel like I never get to turn off from the news, really. You're on and you're engaged all day. And then the worries about just the health of those who you love and the well-being of those who you love on top of that. And it's just hard to wrap my brain around every day. I feel like I'm under more stress than ever because I think I wake up almost every night and my first thought is, oh my God, we're still in this. This is still happening.
Mm-hmm.
And every day it's just hard to wrap your brain around. This is America right now in 2020. And we got to stay at home. We aren't allowed I mean, we're allowed to leave our houses, but we're safer if we stay at home, and we're dealing with this thing that you can't see, and it's scary. It's just a scary time. So I think I'm having a hard time processing it, but doing the best I can and giving and being kind to myself as I try to, you know, be a good journalist, be a good wife, be a good daughter, be a good person, be a good human when people are, you know, telling us we are fake news and the worst, and, you know, we're blowing it out of proportion, and, you know, all the things we're hearing. And I'm just trying to be kind to myself and as kind as I can to others, and especially kind to my colleagues and my family, because I mean, some of my producers are saying to me, I'm having a rough day, or I'm having a hard week. And I'm like, things that I would have gotten bent out of shape over in the show a month or so ago, I'm like, oh, that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
Someone made a typo. You know, everybody's having a real hard time.
friend, one of the things that I've long come to realize about you is that you and your twin sister Margaret almost have like a second sense about each other. But right now, when you're concerned about the lives and the health about those who you are closest to, I can't believe that you would be able to put that out of your mind for even 1 second, because you and Margaret are like this.
We are.
And I don't know how difficult that is to make sure to try to put that out of your mind. Obviously, Joe's in Raleigh, but I would imagine your loved one right here has got to play on your mind a lot as well. True?
In terms of me being worried about.
Yeah. Just in worried and being able to do what we do on a daily basis. And like Ashlea said, be able to put the journalist hat on, even though my wife is a cancer survivor and my daughter has asthma and her husband has asthma and my son and my daughter-in-law have a 6-month-old or a 7-month-old baby that they don't want to get the virus. Those are the things that play in my mind. But you and Margaret are so close that I imagine it's difficult for you to put that out of your mind.
It is difficult, John, and I'm hoping that I'm answering this appropriately. One of my neighbors just dropped off some cookies and with a mask on and rang the doorbell, and I'm like, I'm in an interview. So they just dropped it off. So I didn't hear the very beginning of your question. So I think I'm answering this correctly. With Margaret and with my husband, Joe, it's been very difficult to wear the journalist hat and wear the twin sister and the wife hat. But I've had to wear the journalist hat more than I wanted to with both of them. I mean, when this all began, I think I shared with you, Ashley, that the nail salons were closing on a Wednesday. And on Tuesday, maybe I mentioned this to you, John.
Yeah.
And Margaret's sitting in the nail salon saying, do you think this is okay? And I'm like, absolutely not.
You were
They're
so mad at
closing
her.
the nail salons. Remember, I just lost
You're so mad.
I
Yeah.
was so mad. And nothing against that nail salon. I'm sure they were taking precautions, but they're closing the nail salons for a reason. And so you're thinking that you're safe because you've got a few more hours? No, that's just giving the nail salon time to do what it needs to do before it closes up shop from that point until. And so it's been difficult. And then maybe a week after that, you know, we do have the sparkles, as I say, gray. And she wanted to get the gray out of her hair, and she was going to have someone come to her house. I'm like, no, you can't do that.
That defeats the purpose.
Yes. And so we had some very difficult conversations, and I've had difficult conversations with Joe, who's still going into the office. He called this morning, and I said, where are you? I'm in the office. And I just wanted to hang up the phone. It's very difficult. But they know where I am now. They know I'm very serious about this, and they respect that. Joe has wanted to come here every weekend like he normally does. And I said, as long as you're going to the office and as long as you're going to here, there, and yonder, you're distancing yourself from me, your 87-year-old mother, and your brand new granddaughter. And I'm not saying that behind his back. I said that to his face. So it's very difficult to separate the two because we've got so much knowledge in our heads about what this virus is.
And my parents called me one day and they're like, are we allowed to go to Costco? Because I didn't want them going places. And I sent Brian because I just didn't want my parents, you know, going out and going to places. So I put poor Brian at risk, you know. He did the Costco shop for them, and
Sheila's the one who's running all the errands in our house. She won't let me go to the store.
Right.
And
she won't?
Which is doubly
which is counter and
which is doubly difficult for me since, you know, it's been 10 years since she had chemo and cancer and everything, but that still plays on my mind. She wears her masks, but she gives me the, you know, you shouldn't be seen out. If you're saying something, you should be following it as well. And, you know, to the point, I'm trying to do the best I can with that.
But John, nobody would recognize you with your mask on. And just, you know, it's funny when I went to the produce stand and I had my mask on. I mean, I looked like I was going to rob the produce stand.
Oh, I did.
Being out wearing a mask. It is weird.
Well, I had to make one up and say, you know what mine is? Mine is my cat's little cover that she got for Christmas. So I really did. And then I had on a baseball cap to add to that. So I really looked like a bank robber when I went to the store the other day. I did.
But, you know, my mom was on that. She called me this morning. She was on the Tillis Town Hall that you called into, the Senator Tillis Town Hall. Look at you. Oh, my God. And she said that they were asked to respond to, you know, how many people are wearing masks. And she said 60% of the people on the call are wearing masks.
Yeah, we look like robbers.
Right?
Yeah.
We like robbers. Well, I'm actually inspired to see people wearing masks.
Yeah, me too.
I still can't get my husband to wear one, but even the neighbor who just came here had one on. And as Dr. Philip Brown said today, not today, as he said the other day, he said the mask serves two purposes. It will let the person who's approaching you think, I need to stay away from them. And then it protects you because you don't know what they may have. And we don't know who the carriers are. That's the thing that's so
And you can be asymptomatic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I will say, though, for the first time in my life, while being out wearing a mask, and it was a weird experience for me, was you see about half of the people are wearing masks. Half the people aren't. You see who's taking, you really get a gauge of who's taking it seriously and who's not. But you also see a thing I've never seen as an American in my life, fear in people's eyes. I felt like I could just see when I approached with my mask on, like people are looking at you thinking, how do I get 6 feet away from this person? Or they just look afraid of you. It's just bizarre. And that was real hard. That was really hard for me to see in America.
What's the one
fear?
What's the one thing, Ashley, you miss right now?
Oh my gosh, I got to show you this. Speaking of, I don't know if it's appropriate to show pictures.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Archie he's friends with the little neighbor dog. Can you see in this picture?
Yeah.
Do you see this little
bit?
Do you see this little friendship?
Yeah.
I love watching Archie in the backyard. It's so fun. But that's his little friend. I miss my friends. That picture made me miss seeing my friends, you know, and you guys are my friends. I miss seeing you. And I miss talking to people face to face. But it's going to be a long time before we go back to normal, I think.
Fran, what's one thing you miss right now?
One thing that I miss from the newsroom?
Just one thing you miss about life and the way we are now that as opposed to when 3-4 weeks ago.
Shopping.
What about your husband?
Oh, I talk to him every day. He's good. I'm having shopping withdrawals. I mean, you know, when I get really stressed, that's my way of relieving my stress. And I may just go browse and not buy one single solitary thing. It frustrates the dickens out of Joe because we'll go in a store and I'm just all around the store and I walk out with either one item or none. And he was like, well, that was a total waste of time. But it lets me I don't know, I just like to look at things. And so I miss that. But what I really miss, honestly, I'm not kidding, I miss human contact. I really do. I go for days without seeing anybody. My twin sister lives in the same neighborhood. She's just a couple miles away from me. You know, I have neighbors that I'm close to, but I don't see them. I miss human contact. And it's going to be a while before I hug somebody or shake somebody's hand, but to be able to be in your presence, John, your presence, Ashley, and see you all again, I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to that because I miss it. You know, we take it for granted, but I haven't seen you all in forever. And it's hard. It is hard when you're at this house day in and day out by yourself. Thank goodness I have this cat who really would like for me to get out the house. I can tell that for sure.
Archie is exhausted. His eyes, he looks at me, they get heavy, and then he wakes up. You know, he's used to his naps when I'm not here.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So that's what I miss, human contact.
Yeah, I agree with you. I miss having my two co-anchors in the newsroom, looking right and looking left, and not having those people that I bounce ideas off of or dad jokes or anything like that. I can't wait till you guys are back in the newsroom again.
We can't wait to be back, John. I mean, I miss you telling me you got lipstick on your teeth.
Yeah.
I don't have anybody to do that. I'm going on the air with lipstick on my teeth.
Wait, are you still walking through the newsroom and tripping for an audience of no one?
No, because there's nobody to see it. I will though today, just to put things back to normal. All right.
Well, we do have to say this quickly, John. Thank you for being the standby, because if something does go down and we've had some technical issues,
yeah,
you've had to sprint to the set and take over. So thank you.
So are you wearing running shoes?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
The one day I actually did the teasers at 5 o'clock with the lav mic, and I hadn't even put it on my tie yet. That was the day at 4:58. The thing went down.
Right.
And I didn't have an earpiece on, didn't have a jacket. I went, grabbed my jacket, grabbed my earpiece, got into the set, and literally the open rolled, and I had my lav mic right here in front of my face. And then when the open rolled, I had time to put it on my tie, button my jacket. Good evening.
Oh my God.
And I was there.
Amazing.
It was fun. All right, Ashley and Fran, we appreciate it. Can't wait to see you guys in the newsroom again.
I know. We miss you, John. We really do. Miss you too, Ashley.
Miss y'all. Bye.
Big thank you to both Frances and to Ashley for taking some time and talking about the challenges of anchoring newscasts from home during this coronavirus pandemic. For the near future, they're going to stay right where they are, and you'll be able to see them anchoring at 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 10 and 11 right here on WECT. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to enjoy your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. I'd really like to know what you think of the interviews we do. And the more ratings and reviews we have from people like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of One-on-One. Stay safe.